Welcome to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And we will be your tour guides today for this deep dive of John Landis's 1981 seminal horror comedy, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, this is a movie that I didn't even know that I hadn't seen in literally decades.
I feel like I've only seen this movie like twice, like once as a tween, which is the real formative time, and then probably once again as a young adult, probably right before American Werewolf in Paris came out. I refreshed on it.
I think that I saw it once when I was young, but then I think all of us, or all nerds who are into effects and stuff, have watched the Richard Baker documentary where they talk about all of this stuff and they show all of his handiwork. So I've seen all those scenes like a half dozen times.
Yeah, I'm a huge Rick Baker fan. Hollywood Theater, a while back, they had him in town. I think he was promoting his book. Like he had a kind of a coffee table book of all his career. And they asked him what movie he wanted to attend a screening for, and he picked Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh,
yeah, because Harry is of all of his creatures, from King Kong to the Hound from Hell and American Werewolf in London. Harry is his favorite.
Oh, that's interesting, because I would not have picked that one.
Yeah, but Harry's very good. Like the animation, like on Harry's face, is really great.
Yeah, I get that. So kind of the background of this movie is interesting. How it was, Landis wrote this in 1969, and then he shelved it for over a decade before even getting back to the idea. Basically, people thought that it was either going to be too scary to be a comedy or too funny to be a horror.
Which, I mean, from a certain perspective, is true. It has a very strange tone. But if you think about like a lot of the cult classic movies that have like real kind of obsessive followings, like say like the Evil Dead trilogy and stuff,
sure,
they're on this same line of like kind of goofy, like screwball humor and gross out horror, like real gruesome, bloody horror.
Yeah, where it's almost over the top, it's like the, blood splatters on the wall, kind of cheesy.
Yeah,
level.
I think it's sort of like salted caramel, right? Like it's the two flavors kind of offset each other in a really complimentary way.
I definitely think that's true in most cases. I really felt like this was more leaning into the horror than the comedy. It didn't have as much of a comedic element as I had thought that it would when I was preparing for this movie and I read the synopsis and whatnot, getting ready to go. And I will admit, when I put out a post on socials and asked what movies people wanted to see, American Werewolf in London came up, and it was very popular. Lots of people talked about it, but I wasn't super stoked to see this movie. Like, I was like, oh man, the other movies on the list are so much more appealing to me.
Oh, interesting.
Which I know is weird, because I have called out Werewolf in previous podcasts as a game that I'm really into, and Werewolf the Apocalypse and other stuff like that. So I don't know why. But I guess it's like, this is the guy who did like Blues Brothers and all those other movies, and I don't like those movies either.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I know people love Blues Brothers. I just never it's like I could watch Blues Brothers and not laugh once.
Wow, man.
I don't know why.
Aykroyd
I don't think
and
it's funny.
Oh, geez.
I think Aykroyd is the only funny person in that movie, generally speaking. I don't find John Belushi funny in the least, and I know I'm an outlier. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying empirically John Belushi's not funny. I'm saying for some reason he does not tickle my funny bone.
That's interesting. I mean, when did you see those movies? Like at what age?
When I was a teen.
Okay, maybe you were just like.
Too edgy. I was too much of an edgelord to laugh.
Yeah, I just
Never
wonder
cracked
because
the
like
mask.
I saw them all very young, and I have this in my notes, but I'll just talk about it now. We had a local UHF channel, 49, and it later it became a Fox affiliate. But
yeah, I remember when 49.
Yeah, when I was a little kid or a tween, 49 was this like outlaw UHF channel, and they showed hard R movies, unedited, prime time. Like at 8:00 at night, they showed a movie, and I watched, Animal House and Blues Brothers and American Werewolf in London. I watched all of these movies like at 9 years old, and sort of calibrated my sensibility to them. Probably, like they imprinted on me.
Yeah, I guess different people like different type of humor. Like I had this conversation with a friend recently, like Animal House and Blues Brothers and that kind of thing. They're just not at all funny to me. But at all, the thing that came up was we were talking about Zach Galifianakis and his Between Two Ferns.
Oh yeah,
and then his special that he has where he's playing piano like badly and whatnot. Some people don't think that's funny at all. They just think it's annoying, and I think it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, no, I think Galifianakis is hilarious. Did you ever watch? He used to do a talk show on MTV where he played piano and interviewed people. It's kind of like a proto version of Between Two Ferns.
No, I've never saw
and
that.
Oh man, when I was a teenager, I thought that stuff was hilarious.
Yeah, so I guess we're kind of drifting far afield, talking about what we like and what we don't like. We should. The last, precursor thing before this I wanted to talk about is this is being developed by Robert Kirkman, the creator of the Walking Dead comic book series, as a reboot. They're gonna redo this. Yeah, that's as of 2019.
Okay. As a show, like an FX show,
as a movie.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that's pretty interesting to me. I mean, I think a movie would be better, but I think a show could definitely work given their mythos.
Yeah, if we don't, this will be a tangent show. Did you ever watch the TV show Werewolf? Do you remember that from the late 80s?
No, I did not.
Oh man, I loved that show, and I don't even know if it's like in print, like if you can get it in DVD. But it was like about it's sort of like the same formula as the old Incredible Hulk TV show, where this guy is a werewolf and he's trying to find a way to, to not be a werewolf or whatever. And eventually he wolfs out and kills people every episode.
And then he has to be a drifter again.
And then he has to drift on to the next town. And he's sort of hunting the alpha werewolf that turned him.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that was another. I'm big on werewolves. Dave's the vampire guy. I'm the werewolf
for
guy.
Sure. I was watching Kindred the Embraced during that time period.
Sure, definitely.
All right, so what have you been up to?
Oh, man. I actually did some stuff.
Oh, nice.
So when last we cast pods, I was in the middle of a vacation. Mm-hmm. And so after we wrapped up, I shot down to Florence, Oregon.
Okay.
Very on theme because we just had seen Dune, and I went to the Oregon Dunes, which served as, kind of part of the inspiration for the book. And they're aware of that in Florence. It's a little bit of a feather in their cap.
Well, Frank Herbert's a Cascadian, so
at the local theater, the City Light Cinemas in Florence, great theater by the way. They have like a Dune wall with like illustrations from early editions of the books and magazine covers and stuff. They're pretty proud of Dune. We missed the Dune. They had a little bit of a film festival, and we missed that. It was
cool.
The weekend before, but. Definitely enjoyed Florence. Had many bowls of chowder. And then, I've seen some movies. I saw The Eternals, and I saw the new My Hero Academia movie.
Oh, nice.
Thumbs up Eternals, kind of thumbs down My Hero Academia. It hurts to say, but
man.
It's very skippable.
Yeah, well, most movies are skippable in anime series.
Yeah, but I really liked the last one, the one that you and I went to go see.
Heroes Rising.
Yeah, that one was, verging on I gave it a 4-star review and then downgraded it after I calmed down. But this one this is a 2-star for me.
Ooh, brutal.
Yeah. And then, not to take up too much time, I went back in time yesterday. Went to a couple old establishments that I haven't been to for a long time. One, Another State of Mind.
Okay.
Which is sort of a punk rock staple in Portland, Oregon, to get more patches for my battle jacket, which is coming together quite nicely. Cool. I hope to unveil that soon. And then, Lisa and I were driving down Killingsworth. We're going to Cerveza, where I got our podcast fuel. I saw a window that said Ozone Records.
Wow.
And I was like, flipped a U-turn, went back. And the owners of Ozone Records have revived the store. They've been basically, the whole record store has been in storage since 2001.
Holy crap! They had all that inventory, so a bunch of old stuff.
Yeah, so it's all like late 90s, early 2000s record store come back to life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so bought a little vinyl, chit-chatted with the owner. Lisa was like, oh, we used to always go to your store, blah, blah, blah. Like, and she's like, it's so cool. Did you guys meet at the Ozone? Like, she was hoping for a really cute, meet cute story, but we disappointed her. What about you? What have you been up to?
You know, so it's good that you had a lot to say, because I don't have a lot to say. I've got more tattoos.
Oh, yeah,
spent a lot of time in the chair this last week, and my arm is it's pretty beat up because it's a lot of packing of black.
Yeah, hashtag black work. They've got some serious black work done.
Yeah, and so there was that, and then and shout out to Carrie, who's getting a full Japanese leg piece done. She just started that.
How's her shins feeling?
She did, since the shin isn't gonna have. She's getting a dragon. It's doesn't have a lot of body on the shin, so they just did the line work for the main pieces first. So she hasn't done a lot yet, but she did say behind the knee hurt quite a lot.
Oh, the ditch. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been just doing my normal stuff, doing my Armored Combat thing. Role-playing games. We're recording Barrowlands stuff. We had to put a little bit of a pause on that because one of the band members was doing some business travel and got the old COVID.
Oof.
So he was laid up sick for a little bit, but he's well again, and so we're back on soon and playing some disc golf. That's really been it. I've been working a lot, lots of hours at work, and nothing crazy. I have not broken my routine since the last time we podcasted.
Very good.
So, what are we drinking today? What's our fuel?
Well, I picked up two different things, and this kind of works because I sort of see us. We're a little bit Jack and David. I see myself as the David and you as the Jack. I don't. You might see the opposite.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not the Jack.
But I gave you the Jack themed beer, and it's called
I gotcha.
Ghost of Juicy Past. It's from Great Notion here in Portland, and here's their little spiel. Take heed, the Ghost of Juicy Past is here, and this West Coast style IPA is loaded with spooky amounts of Citra Cryo, Eldorado, and Mandarina Bavarian hops. It's a 7.2 ABV, 0 IBUs listed, and I've never had that beer. So, what do you think of it?
It's pretty good. It's definitely kind of a straight up West Coast IPA. I don't know why I was thinking this was going to be a hazy when I drank it because it's called Ghost of Juicy Pass. I was expecting a hazy.
Yeah, and I think I told you it was a hazy. I was wrong.
You were wrong. It is a straight up West Coast IPA, which means it's a little more bitter than I expected, which is fine. I like IPAs. It's what I would call just kind of a journeyman West Coast IPA that you would expect to order at a pub and you wouldn't be disappointed.
Nice.
But you also probably wouldn't make a Facebook post about it.
Okay, it's not going to knock your socks off, but it's solid.
Yeah, it's very drinkable.
And on the other side of the table, I'm drinking Night Howler it's an American Imperial Stout from Bearlick Beer Company, also from Portland, Oregon. They are less creative with their spiel. It says deep notes of bitter chocolate, charred bread, and epic coffee. Yeah, and I would second all that. I'm a big stout head. That's kind of my main beer style, and especially this time of year. It's probably a little early to drink an Imperial Stout, but I live on the edge.
All right, so let's take a break, come back, and jump in this movie.
All right, divers, welcome back. Let's jump into American Werewolf in London, 1981, directed by John Landis.
So this movie opens up with kind of a song and landscape shots, plenty of nice little B-roll there of the moors.
The beautiful Welsh countryside.
Yeah, and it's got some credits, kind of that dated practice that they don't do anymore, but you're just used to it. I guess movies these days, they open up with a bang. Like there's a lot of usually something immediately in the first 2 minutes grabs a hold of you.
Yeah.
Not so with movies before 1995, I think.
Yeah, it's now the tendency is you have the, like the studio card and then a cold open and then the title comes after some time into the movie. And it's the same thing with a lot of TV shows, like especially cinematic TV shows like Walking Dead or Breaking Bad and stuff.
Yeah, they really make sure nowadays to hook you in before you lose interest, because I think people have a lot of other things to do, a lot of other options, and so you're not as hooked in.
Oh, I think you're onto something there. That the cold open is a baited hook to get you hung on before the title card. Yeah. No, I think you're probably right. So as you said, it opens with the song, and the song Blue Moon, 3 different versions of it appear in this movie, but that was not the intended song for this opening title sequence. They wanted Moonshadow by Cat Stevens, but as a devout Muslim, he didn't want his song on an R-rated film, and so he wouldn't allow them the rights.
Interesting.
So they ended up having to triple up on Blue Moon.
Wow. So we see these 2 guys, and they're in the back of a truck that's loaded with sheep, and the farmer lets them out in the middle of nowhere. And this reminds me of Dracula.
Oh yeah, very much so.
When he's let out, the guy's let out of the carriage in the middle of nowhere, and the carriage driver's like, "Good day," and just leaves.
Yeah, this is a Universal Studios movie, and they make no bones about being inspired by the classic Universal horror films. There's Dracula and the Wolfman are kind of a constant feature in the movie.
Yeah.
Just, foreshadowing, they're in a truckload of sheep. They're telling you right from the get-go, these guys are dead meat.
Yeah, these guys are prey animals. And the driver's like, "Keep off the moors."
Yeah, and they get this advice multiple times, and they always forget about it. They're headstrong college boys, kind of posh New York kids with three months to backpack across Europe. They got that kind of dough, and they're indestructible, so they think.
And so there's a bit of time spent on the dialogue between these 2 guys, kind of, I guess, building their characters, who they are, and they're walking and talking and having some serious bro talk, where David is basically telling Jack that the girl he's into is no good. She's a bad pick.
She's dull. Yeah, it's very sexist and feels super cringe. Now
it does. He's basically saying, like, the guy's like, "But she's hot," and the other one's like, "But she's lame." "But she's hot." It's like it's a really bad conversation.
Yeah, but it also feels very kind of true of a couple young dudes that are full of themselves.
A couple of chuckleheads.
And so this is Jack and David, played by Griffin Dunn and David Naughton. And yeah, they're just backpacking across Europe, and eventually they do cross country across the moors, and they find themselves in this small village, and they pop into a local pub to warm up, and the pub is ominously named the Slaughtered Lamb. More foreshadowing.
Yeah, and their sign is super cool with this werewolf head on
a pike.
It's pretty cool. They go in there and they just get the pub, it's like almost one of those like record scratch, complete silence. Everyone turns and looks. It's weird.
That's a Landis staple. Because that happens in Animal House also, and I think in the Blues Brothers, that moment where,
like at the country bar,
where the interlopers walk into the place they're supposed to be there, and everyone stops. And I realized he's single-handedly responsible for my fear of that moment. Like, I kind of grew up afraid of going into that place that I didn't belong and everyone turning and staring at me. And I have to say, the only place that's ever happened is Japan. It's never happened anywhere in America.
Even in Japan, when we would go into a place and people would turn and look, then after we just sort of were like, we're going to stay, we're not leaving, people would stop
Go back about their business.
But people in this movie, they got nothing better to do than stare at these two American kids.
Oh, I got one time I got twice we're full.
Oh yeah,
like
I got that once. I was with some friends there, and I wasn't the one that went up to the host. It was Carly, and the person said, "We're full, no tables." And we looked around, and there's like the place is half empty, half full, and we're like, okay,
yeah.
It kind of steamed some people, but I was just sort of like, they don't want our money. They don't get our money. That's okay. This is a capitalism.
We're white Americans. Getting to experience racial discrimination is such a rare thing that it almost feels like a treat. You're like, oh, what a novel experience. I was judged because of the color of my skin.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a treat, but I would say it definitely was novel.
Yeah, a novel experience. That's a better way to put it.
Yeah. Okay, so they're in this bar. They decide they're not going to leave because it's raining outside. It's cold. And first of all, I want to say, if anybody is ever like romantically talking about hiking across Europe for a vacation or whatnot, I just want to put it out there. Don't invite me, because fuck spending months on your feet as a vacation. That sounds like work. It sounds hard, and walking around in the rain sucks balls. I get that here.
See, you're the Jack. I said, you're the Jack and I'm the David. David is up for it. He's like, isn't this fun? And Jack is like, no, look around.
Let's
this
go
is
to
not
Italy.
Fun.
It's warm there. It's nice. Yeah. So maybe I am the Jack. Although Jack is kind of a jackass. Anyway, so they're sitting there and they're looking at this. There's an upside down star that looks ominously painted in blood on the wall, and there's burning candles around, and they're talking about it, and there's a joke where they say, "Oh, there must be Texans here because there's a star." And if you've ever been to Texas, they have stars everywhere in Texas. It's like their thing. So I liked that little joke.
Well, the stars at night are big and bright?
Big and bright.
Yeah.
So, then he's like, oh, it's the mark of the wolf man. They're burning candles to ward off monsters. Like, it's common knowledge. Like, everyone knows that.
Yeah, this is the first time he references the wolf man. He's like, Lon Chaney Jr. contends that's the mark of the wolf man.
Yeah.
And he brings it up because the crowd kind of loosens up, and they're not feeling quite as unwelcome. And Jack is like, "What's with the star?" And they go back to hostile again.
Well, it was weird because he interjects that completely at an inappropriate time, and he just asks the room. He doesn't even ask like the bartender lady or whatnot.
Yeah,
he just sort of puts it out there, all big and awkward. Whatever. They
didn't like it. And it is time for the boys to go. Before we get too far, I do want to point out the late, great Rick Mail is one of the pub patrons. And he has like almost no dialogue at all in this whole movie. And I just like, it's like, that's Rick Mail, Drop Dead Fred, the young ones. It's like, they're wasting him. He should do something funny, but he just plays chess.
Interesting. That's cool that they at least got that kind of cameo. Yeah, So they leave, and they're told, to stay clear of the moors. They don't. And so, like, they're out on the roads, wandering across. They leave the roads. They're literally wandering across the moors. It makes me wonder, like, where are they going? They don't even have a compass to be like, we need to head generally east.
Yeah, I forget, like, that is sort of, like, what they're doing is heading east. But they do just sort of veer off the road absent-mindedly, it seems like.
Yeah.
And we keep cutting back to the bar, and the barmaid, she's like, oh, we have to go after them. They can't leave them out there. And the townsfolk, the local sheep farmers, basically are just willing to sacrifice these boys to keep secret that they have a werewolf problem.
Yeah, she's like, it's murder then. Then murder it is.
Yeah, they're very, very grim townsfolk.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're walking, and out of the Jack falls down, like just randomly, and then boom, there's a werewolf on him.
Yeah, they've been hearing this sort of unearthly howl that's like a composite animal sound like a wolf and a lion and a train and all this stuff.
So here's the deal. If I'm Jack and I fall down and I start getting attacked by an animal, do you pull a David and run away?
Run away?
Because that's some straight bullshit.
But he came back.
After the guy was dead, he should have been like, okay, so realistically, if you're out on there and one of you falls down and an animal jumps you, around here, I think it's a starving cougar or maybe a wolf or a dog or a coyote.
Yeah.
I'd be laying the boots right in the ribs of that beast immediately.
Yeah. So, something about me is I don't have a healthy fear of animals.
Yeah. You'd probably try to grab it around the waist and pick it up, knowing you.
Or just Kurt Angle suplex the wolf.
Yeah. I'd start striking it. You'd go for wrestling.
Yeah. If you don't know us now, you do. That is probably the move. I would suplex the wolf.
And then I would have survived.
Yeah. And then I got mauled by the wolf and you got away.
Well, then we probably both would have died because we'd be fighting a werewolf.
Hey, if Liam Neeson can fight a wolf, I think we can handle it.
So, yeah, I just thought that was cold as hell. His buddy gets jumped and he immediately turns and just runs. And then he's like, oh, shit, I better go back. And he runs back and his buddy's dead.
Yeah. And then he gets jacked by the wolf also. And the townsfolk finally found their conscience and they shoot the wolf. And as David lies there kind of bleeding on the moors, he sees a naked man next to him and not a wolf. The guy
has bullet holes in him.
Yeah. Ooh, spooky.
What could have happened?
And it occurred to me, there's a lot of scenes in this movie that I've seen homaged repeatedly because this whole like running, being chased, falling down, and while you go to help your buddy up, you get attacked. Almost beat for beat. That's the opening of Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead.
Oh yeah, I liked Army of the Dead. That was a pretty good movie. So the thing is, I would say in the pacing of this movie, after he wakes up and he sees the dead guy next to him and whatnot. This is where I think the movie stops being interesting. The next long montage, it's not even a montage, the next long series of scenes, I'm just like, okay, more Wolfman. Okay, let's be a werewolf movie. Okay, I don't care about this girl or this kid, or let's be a werewolf movie, and it just never fucking does until after the 1 hour mark.
Yeah, so you're skipping ahead to the what didn't work for you, I think, but
it's barely a werewolf movie.
I think there is. We can address it now. There is a big lag in the pace here, as we basically have to spend a month in hospital to get to the next full moon.
About 50 minutes in real time.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's much shorter than 3 weeks.
yeah, that's
so, true. As Dave's alluding to, David, not our David, but the film's David, wakes up in a London hospital sometime later.
And he has a rad scar on his face and chest.
He's definitely scarred up, and he's being cared for by Nurse Alex Price, played by Jenny Agutter, who I recognized... I didn't know where I recognized her from, but she's in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is one of my favorite Marvel movies.
That's a good one.
She's held up real well. She's a senator lady that, or part of the World Security Council. I guess she wouldn't be a senator because she's British.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's beside the point. And Dr. Hirsch, played by John Woodvine, and he's a WW2 vet, and he doesn't suffer fools. I like Dr. Woodvine a lot. He's one of my favorite characters.
He's pretty hard nuts. He doesn't. He really takes zero shit.
I like when he's like, Nurse Gallagher, surely you perform some function at this hospital.
Yeah, there's a lot of unprofessional shit going down at this hospital. She's like, yo, yeah, I looked at his dick.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like,
get out of here.
Yeah.
Dick looker. Yeah, that's something. I did notice that Lisa really bumped up against it hard. Like, we were talking about, I was asking her thoughts on the movie, and she's like, I liked it, but some of the stuff, it's just hard to take how bad the people are.
Yeah, there's a lot of like bad people in here. I think Nurse Alex might be one of the only truly good people in the movie.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Hirsch is good too.
Yeah, he's gruff and he's kind of a prick, but he is good.
Yeah. You know, he spent his time in North Africa fighting the Germans.
Yeah,
he's earned being a little bitter, I think.
So yeah, basically, there's some scenes in here with the doctor, and then the guy from the American Embassy shows up.
Yeah, Frank Oz, man, that's Yoda.
Oh man, he has a weird diction there. He says he doesn't use like contractions in his speech, and he's just very overly formal. Excuse me. He's very overly formal, and I was just like, why is this embassy guide so fucking weird?
I guess just because it's Frank Oz. He's kind of I think this is his natural speaking voice, is much closer to Fozzie Bear than it is to Yoda.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he looks like David Cross.
He does look like David Cross.
So I was just, I knew he was familiar. And it wasn't until I read the credits I saw who he was. But I was like, who is this guy? I know him. It's like, oh yeah, because that's the voice of Yoda and Miss Piggy. That's why I know him.
So yeah, then David is interviewed by Inspector Villiers, who basically tells him that he and Jack were attacked by an escaped lunatic. But David insists that it was a rabid dog or a wolf. Nobody believes him.
Yeah, but clever thing they did here. He was attacked by an escaped lunatic. Because a lunatic is a person that's driven mad by the changing of the moon.
Oh, man.
So
technically true.
That's film studies, guys. There's symbolism.
Man, I hope we get more Film 101. Like the camera turns 360 degrees counterclockwise.
Yeah.
Anyway, so basically, there seems to be they inject a little. There's a scene with the cops talking to the doctor.
Yeah,
and I think they try to inject a little slapstick or something into this movie where the cop is dropping stuff, and it's just this overly long, ponderous, noisy scene.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, okay, what was that?
Yeah, because the two Scotland Yard detectives, they're a comedy double act. They have a stooge and a straight man, and they're doing this sort of Abbott and Costello thing, which I think probably that's a nod to the Universal horror movies, and actually the original horror comedy, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's what they are, the Abbott and Costello kind of stand-ins in this movie. I think that's just more movie nerd bullshit.
Yeah, I wish it had been funny or had a point.
It's just there for the nerds, David.
Yeah, it was there for the director's ego.
Easter eggs are there to show how much you know.
Yeah. and so then it cuts to I assume David is having a dream. He's frolicking in the woods naked, and he kills an animal, and he's eating it.
Yeah, he has wolf dreams like Bran from Game of Thrones.
He's definitely a warg at this point.
And so I don't know. You recognize this scene from Twilight, right? They homage this in one of the Twilight movies where they're running through the woods and they take down the deer. I think it's Bella that does it, and it's almost shot for shot.
I don't know. I'm not gonna say that. I think at a certain point, if you're doing a werewolf movie, there's gonna be forest frolicking. I don't know if I'm gonna give this movie credit for that. It's just a natural part of the werewolf story.
I think it's intentional.
Okay, maybe there's a nerd in that movie making group too.
I'm sure.
And then there's this little scene where Nurse Alex goes to the children's ward, and there's this little boy that only says no.
Man, I hate that kid.
To everything he's asked. And I'm just like, okay, when is this going to be funny or horror? Because this is lame.
Yeah, normally...
Why are we in the children's ward?
Well, I think it's just this establishing Nurse Alex as a good and... she's someone that takes care of people, even the ones that are a little tougher to take care of.
Sure.
You're on record always as a kid hater in movies. Usually I'm like, oh, but kids are cute. I hate the no kid. I really like, if I was going to trim anything, and this is not a very long movie, every scene with the no kid can go. It doesn't, none of them add anything.
This is a 45-minute movie with 45 minutes of throwaway scenes.
I maybe won't go as far with you as you do.
Okay,
but
an hour with 30 minutes of throwaway?
That's getting closer to the mark. We'll get to that stuff at the end.
Okay. So then they cut back to David, and David won't eat. Mm-hmm. And then Nurse Alex decides she's going to feed him.
Yeah. Nurse Alex and David are getting pretty flirty. It's very unprofessional, kind of cute.
So it's unprofessional of her, but mostly it feels like David is kind of pushing it. And I don't know why, but I have this deep-seated hatred of people who target people who are at work for romantic advances.
That is shitty.
They're a captive audience. They can't run away.
I'll give you, that is shitty behavior. However, it's only recently gotten out of style.
Yeah, in Hollywood, it's been in style.
Oh yeah, in Hollywood, it's been in style up until just a couple years ago when Harvey Weinstein went down. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'll give you that. That's not good behavior. But I think it's pretty normal 1981 behavior.
Yeah. And then they go back to another dream in the forest, and David almost like vamps out. Like his face gets all like weird and like almost vampire like. He tries to tell the doctor about his dreams. The doctor doesn't care. And he says, I'm lonely. I shouldn't be left alone or something. And so Nurse Alex has to come and hang out with him for forever.
Because she's got nothing better to do.
Is that a thing you can do at a hospital and say, I need someone to sit with me, and they'll assign a highly paid employee to sit down and do nothing?
No, absolutely not. I know nurses, and they don't have time for anything. Like they take their breaks like standing in the bathroom crying, and so they no, you can't just get a nurse to sit down and read Mark Twain books to you.
Yeah. You should just call a family member if you need someone to sit in your room.
But they're overseas, and he wants to have sex with her.
No, that's true. That's true. He's got to target her.
Yeah, and then and we might be jumping around a little bit, but there's one more wolf dream, and it's one of the more iconic ones, and it's where we see David's home life back in New York.
Yeah, that's what comes next.
Yeah, his brother and sister and his parents, and they're watching the Muppets. So Frank Oz has 2 credits because he's also Miss Piggy, and they're attacked by Nazi werewolves.
Yep.
And when we were talking about doing this movie, you asked me, "Is this a MetaTrifecta?" And I said, not technically, but I'm going to make a case that it is. And this is the first piece of evidence, because those Nazi werewolves have been used so much, like on punk rock flyers. Those are a real iconic image. So especially like there's one with a mohawk, and there's the one with the bald head that cuts David's throat. I've seen specific like Sam Hain flyers with that werewolf on it. So point 1 for MetaTrifecta. There'll be more. There's several more.
Oh, okay. It's sort of leaning that way. I don't know. And so basically, like, it goes back to the hospital, and you think it's the hospital, but it's still the dream.
Yeah.
And they murder Alex.
That got an actual jump out of me when she opens the curtains and gets stabbed.
Yeah.
I actually I got a jump scare, and I was like, good job, John Landis. I'm hard to scare. That one got me to jump. So I give him a point for that.
I was like, whoa, we're still in the dream. So yeah, this is, and then we get the first appearance of Jack in his undead form.
Oh man, I love Jack so much.
What is he? He's a ghost at this point? Ghost or a zombie?
Well, they call him the undead. I don't think anyone can see him but the werewolf.
So he's probably a ghost.
Or a wraith?
A wraith. I don't know much difference between a ghost and a wraith.
Yeah, he's tangible though. He can touch things.
Oh, okay.
He interacts with his food and everything, but no one can see him but David.
So he's some sort of weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically explains to David that the beast that attacked him was a werewolf, and now David is one because he survived the attack, but he got bitten or whatever.
Right.
And that David has to die in order to put all the people to rest.
Yeah, the line of the wolf has to be severed.
Yes, and David's the last one.
Mm-hmm. And he wants David to kill himself.
Yes.
And David is not buying. He's crying, and he calls for the nurse, and Nurse Price comes running in to rescue him. I don't want to brush over this because I love Jack so much. Like, he's totally my favorite character in the movie, and his progressive decomposition. That was the big thing that stuck with me from watching it as a kid. I remember that was the thing when I went to school the next morning to talk to my friends about it. It was like, and there's a guy, he got killed by the werewolf, and he's just getting more and more rotten, and he's really funny. And like, I liked Jack a lot.
Yeah, I thought that the makeup and stuff was really good, and they did win an Academy Award for that. So
I have it in my notes like 3 times. Rick Baker, the best to ever do it.
Sure.
He's just the best makeup artist there's ever been, and I'll die on that hill. I don't think anyone's touched him.
Yeah, he's really good. And so basically David is crying, and Alex comes to help him, and he sneaks in a kiss.
Yeah. So David
seems wildly inappropriate. There's no tears on his face. He's faking it.
David, well, I think young men are resilient, and they bounce back from tragedy quick.
And then when they cry, they don't have tears.
Maybe. And he just starts, he doesn't have anywhere to stay, and he's pulling a real creep move, and he's going to insinuate himself into her life.
Mm-hmm. Was it just me, or was there like no or even negative chemistry between these two actors?
It comes and goes. They're... not to jump ahead, their sex scene has zero chemistry in it.
I think that all of their interactions have zero chemistry.
There's lots of times when they're just like looking moony at each other and talking that it feels very genuine to me. But when it gets like physical, it gets real like weird.
I think you could have replaced, you could have had the actor or actress mooning at a fence post, just say, okay, go ahead and give your best romantic looks here, and it would have been equal to the scene with the other person.
I might agree with you. I'm not gonna go there, but I'm not gonna say that you're wrong. I acknowledge your observation, and it might be true.
So Nick alluded to the fact that there's a love scene. Basically, she takes him out for lunch and then to her apartment.
Hold on, we skipped MetaTrifecta evidence number 2.
Oh.
Punks on the train. There's real punks in this movie.
Oh man, you're really gonna count the appearance of a punk as a
not
meta
one.
thing?
A whole group. There's at least half a dozen punks in there.
Okay.
Punk flavor. The subculture content is growing by the minute.
I'm not even sure this is definitely not a subculture movie, or even about subculture, but
content. It has subculture content. I'm working for that MetaTrifecta.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is gonna get the stamp. But
okay.
She takes him to lunch, and then they go to her apartment, and they get down.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Alex's flat for a second, because something that it's immediately apparent to me. She's a little bit of an Americanophile. She's got 2 Casablanca posters, Disney figures all over the place. Disney iconography is sort of like a running background theme through the whole movie, and so I did a little jujuling on that. And John Landis said he put the Disney stuff in there to ground the movie in reality. And it's like just subconsciously you see those things and you connect it like to the real world that we live in. So it's just... I think she collects American shit, and she's collected one more American shit in David.
Yes. So I was wondering here at this point, if she had a baby, would it be infected with the werewolf thing? Because it's the line of the werewolf.
Oh, they do use the word bloodline.
So could this be that even if David dies, that the line of the werewolf continues?
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't remember anything about An American Werewolf in Paris, except for that I hated it.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
So I don't remember what the premise of the sequel was, if it was connected to David or not.
I don't remember either.
But sure, yeah, we could say that he passed the line on this way. But I think the way they treat it, it's more of
the infected.
Yeah, but bloodborne pathogens, they just go, through body fluids, through mucous membranes. So you can make a case for him infecting her if it's viral.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I don't know how quasi scientific we want to go with this.
No idea. So I guess she goes off to work, and at some point, David has another visit from Jack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in the night. He gets up to pee, and then Jack is kind of waiting for him.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Jack is more decomposed. He's all green now.
He's gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, he's saying, you got to kill yourself. You're going to become a werewolf tomorrow. There's a full moon.
Yeah. David's just not buying it.
And David's like, nah, I'm good.
And he's kind of like, I'm going to save this vacation.
Yeah, I'm salvaging this. I'm
turning this around.
I'm here with this lady.
Yeah.
All is well.
David is sort of terrible. He's
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so then we have the doctor. We cut to him, and he goes and he visits the slaughtered lamb and asks about the incident.
Dr. Hirsch, I have this in my notes. He's a better detective than anyone at Scotland Yard.
Yeah.
Scotland Yard is real. They just want to close the book and accept the story that the local cops from East Proctor, the local cops fed them. But Dr. Hirsch, he's seen David's injuries and listened to his story, and he knows there's something up. So points to Dr. Hirsch for taking his job seriously.
And these locals, they're completely dickish and standoffish to him too. So it's not just that those guys were Americans; they're just dicks.
They don't like interlopers.
Yeah, they don't like outsiders.
It's a classic town with a curse situation. Yeah. They don't want anyone to know about it. They just want to keep it under wraps. And plus, they got rid of the curse. They sent the werewolf off to London.
Yeah, now their town's not cursed anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But one of them, the dart player, he's...
the younger dude.
Yeah, he's a little guilt-racked. And he goes outside to check on the dogs. And he stands in the rain ominously and waits for Dr. Hirsch to finish his Guinness and come outside. And he tells him, it were a mistake. The boy's in danger. And Dr. Hirsch is like, this town's crazy. Everyone here has a mass neurosis.
Yeah, and then the older guy comes out and sees him talking to Dr. Hirsch, and he's like, hey!
That's enough! Yeah.
And Dr. Hirsch leaves, cuts back to David and Alex. He sees her off to work.
Yeah.
The dog won't stop barking at him, and then a cat doesn't like him.
Classic trope. You newly turned into a werewolf, and now dogs and cats don't like you.
And he locked himself out, so he has to go in through the window. His feet are filthy. I don't know if you caught that.
I did catch that.
To me.
But he's hitchhiking across Europe. You get dirty feet.
Gross. He's in a lady's house. He's showered recently, I hope.
Yeah, but those just never come clean once you've been traipsing across the moors. Yeah. It's permanent dirty feet.
When I saw him put his filthy feet on her pillows on the thing, I was like, oh my God. Ugh.
Yeah.
You did that in my house? Oh, it's over for you.
I don't know if it would be you or Carrie that did the killing.
It would be me on her behalf.
You're like, I am okay with filth, but I will not have an unhappy wife.
I have my priorities.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. So we get a slice of life montage as bored David waits for Nurse Alex to come home, and it's all set to CCR's Bad Moon Rising.
Did you notice when he's watching TV and there's the dart competition, it was the young dark-haired guy from the pub?
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, good catch. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I always thought, boy, they really like darts in England. That was my.
It was the dart guy who hits 320s because he made a big deal about it the first time. He goes, "I never miss."
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I totally missed that. I did notice the darts connection, but not. And then
they show us a whole Nina Carter commercial about her naughty pictures and stuff, and I'm just like, what the fuck does this add to this movie or the plot or anything? What is the point of this?
So I didn't Google. Is she a real lady? That seems like a familiar name.
It's a real person.
I think it was just a real commercial, and it's more that grounding thing. It's like werewolves. They're just like us. They get bored waiting for their girlfriend to come home, and they watch bad TV.
And I like the song. I like the CCR. Bad Moon's a great song.
We get one more. We get a little interlude with Nurse Alex and the No Kid. Yes. And we get the glimpse out the window of the full moon. And then we cut back to
Hold on. I do love that she asks the No Kid. She says, "Have you ever been severely beat about the face and head?" She says playfully to him. Mm-hmm. And I just think, do it.
Yeah. Well, I would say that went into my repertoire, and I had no idea where it came from. Like when she said, "Have you ever been beaten severely about the face and head?" And I was like, that's where I got that. Yeah, because I just thought that was the funniest shit when I was 9 years old.
Yeah, for sure. I kept that one too. That went in my back pocket. That's like a fire it up. You just say it.
And then back at the flat, Sam Cooke's rendition of Blue Moon starts playing, and David goes through the most brutal, brightly lit transformation from shitty college student to werewolf.
Yes, and it took us an hour to get here.
Oh, but it's good. This is a good payoff.
This is really good effects and makeup. I loved this. Why did they make us wait an hour to get the coolest scene in the movie?
That's tension. Tension comes from anticipation.
And I think this is why people wanted to watch the movie. They didn't want to see the adventures of David the Horny Creepo. That's literally not why you watch this movie.
Yeah.
Unless you're just a John Landis fan and like Animal House is your jam, and you're like, well, I'll get to watch another Landis flick with some more boobs in it. That'll be great.
David the Horny Creepo is a working title, and we're gonna come up with something better before we go to market.
They're like, American Creepo in London.
Oh no. I had a title for the episode picked out, but that's in the running. We'll see when we get to mine. We'll discuss it. What can you say about this scene? It's legendary, right?
It is the scene.
It's the scene. This is why this movie is a cult classic, and it is so good, and it's so brutal. Like, it's so painful. And
like when his hand stretches out.
I saw that picture of him staring at his elongated hand way before I even saw the movie. It was in some monster movie book that I had.
Yeah.
And I was always like, what's even happening in this picture? Like, I was so like intrigued by that.
This is really a cool scene. I really like it. And then he starts prowling the streets of the London Underground. Yeah. Kills and slaughters 6 people. Mm-hmm. I really liked these prowl scenes.
Oh,
they're so good.
So the two, they're kind of like posh people that are going over to a friend's party, and they decide to sneak around back so they can give them a good scare, and they got in the park, and the lady in the house goes, "Sean, there's hooligans in the park again." And I was like, oh, I just love this stuff. And while the prowling scenes are going on, Dr. Hirsch is getting back to the hospital, and he wants to know where David is and talk to Nurse Alex. And there's sort of a vibe in the hospital of, oh, Nurse Alex is hooking up with that guy, and that's probably bad. Should we tell the doctor? But the doctor is just worried about where the werewolf is. He's not worried about, breaking bylaws at the hospital.
Yeah, young people going to do young people shit. You're like, whatever.
Yeah. And next up on the menu, a group of unhoused men. This scene was actually cut because it was too gruesome in the original edit, and to get their R rating, they had to cut the werewolf like ripping their heads off and stuff. But I guess there was more gruesome stuff from that scene.
Yeah. So where did you watch this stream?
I bought the Blu-ray.
Oh, you have it. Okay.
Yeah.
I paid to stream it on YouTube. Actually.
Okay. This is a terrible time to tell you, but this was on that hard drive full of movies that your buddy gave you.
Yeah, that's okay. It was only a couple bucks. But
and we support artists and paying people their royalties.
Sure. Yeah. I thought of that after I started it. I was like, I bet you I have this on my external hard drive. Anyway, so my favorite scene from all of these is the last one where he's prowling the guy in the subway, and it's just a stalking scene. You actually don't get the payoff. Like, it doesn't. It's implied.
Yeah.
But it was really good. That stalking scene was extremely well done.
It's one of the best horror sequences in the whole movie.
Yeah.
For sure. And they have all these really great shots where they rigged up a sling to hold the camera at the low angle. So you're hunting the guy through David's eyes as he hunts him around the tube station.
The camera work in this scene is superb. It's great.
And then you just at the very end, he falls getting on the escalator and breaks his nose, and it's a tough fall. And everyone's kind of afraid of escalators a little bit, right? Like you're always because it's hard metal, and if I hit my face on this, it would be bad.
It's like a slow motion wood chipper.
Yeah, and he full on face plants into the escalator, and then you see from the top of the escalator a reflection of the wolf coming out of the shadows, and you just get that glimpse of it before it cuts away. And
John Landis should have made horror movies, not the movies that he made.
Come on, Coming to America. That's a classic.
That was a good movie. That was funny.
Okay, we're not going to go down.
Murphy's funny.
We're not going to go down that road. John Landis has a lot of classics under his belt. You just don't like them.
Yeah, that's okay. So basically,
hold on.
Okay,
MetaTrifecta.
There was a punk rocker asleep in this London Underground.
So there was political graffiti on the walls.
Oh no, you're gonna count that?
I am gonna count that. And there's a poster for the two-tone documentary Dance Craze on the wall in the London Underground.
So I'm gonna say, if we're gonna count this kind of really
tangential,
far-reaching, grasping content, I bet you we can make a case that Home Alone is a MetaTrifecta.
Oh man, I don't want to watch Home Alone, but
I watch it every year at Christmas time.
Do you really?
Oh yeah. Well, I spend Christmas with the in-laws, and there's Christmas movies gonna get played, and that's one of them.
Okay, and when I say I don't want to watch Home Alone, it's not because I have anything against it.
It's actually pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we have an excuse. If we think about this for a second, there is a remake of Home Alone on Disney Plus that's coming out.
Oh no.
We could do a head-to-head of the two Home Alones.
It's been a long time since we did a head-to-head.
Yeah.
We could think about it, but
okay.
Anyway.
We already have our Christmas movie lined up, and I think it's a good one. So maybe next year we do a Home Alone head-to-head. Probably
It'll
not.
never get old.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay, so basically, David wakes up in a zoo in the wolf enclosure.
I love this scene too.
Of which he has no problem climbing out of.
He is a pretty athletic dude.
Wolves are super athletic. If a human could climb up that thing, no doubt a wolf could too.
I think, well...
Do you know how big wolves actually are?
Well, I mean...
They're very fucking big.
I saw him in a thing with two wolves. So I do kind of have a pretty good idea of what the size of those wolves are. I've seen way bigger ones, too.
Yeah.
There's several species of wolves.
That's true.
There's gray wolves and red wolves.
The most common wolf.
Yeah.
Gray wolves are large.
Yeah. I really love this scene, and I love the idea that at the end of a night of hardcore killing...
You go home.
The Wolfman went to the wolf enclosure at the zoo, and the wolves are so chill with him. It's really
like, hey dude, what's up, bro?
Yeah, every other animal at the zoo is much more upset about him being there than the wolves.
And this whole deal, the following scene where he is making his way back to the apartment, he's trying to steal balloons and some clothes, and he's in like this really good mood and all this stuff. And I'm just like, man, is this the comedy of the horror comedy?
It's the famous balloon thief.
I was just like, holy fuck, this is so lame.
I quote, "A naked American man stole my balloons." I think that's a good joke.
Okay.
Him stealing the coat from the lady as he runs by,
and then walk, and you know what it reminds me kind of? This kind of is like, maybe it's another homage to Benny Hill. Just
kind of British humor,
a crazy guy running around scene to scene doing crazy things.
It's kind of that. Yeah, I maybe. I'll give you that.
I mean, it's a reach, but
it's an homage to a certain sort of humor.
Yeah, and it was just like, okay. Anyway, so basically, he gets back. He meets up with Alex. He's very handsy with her.
He's hopped up on man flesh, man. He's been out killing all night, and he feels good. He doesn't know why, but he feels good.
And the doctor calls and wants Alex to bring him to the hospital. And to her credit, she does. She's trying to bring him that way.
What does she say? She says this because he says, like, is he rational? And she's like, he seems excited and confused, a bit enthusiastic.
Yeah,
because he's never felt more alive. Like he says, he feels like an athlete. Mm-hmm. He's got that wolf juice in him, and he's loving it. And they take a taxi to go to the hospital, and the cabbie spills the beans. Alex wasn't going to let him know about the stuff that happened.
Oh, yeah.
And she actually didn't really know. Dr. Hirsch only sort of alluded to it to her. And he says, it puts you in mind of the days of the old demon barber of Fleet Street. Sweeney Todd reference there. And David loses it. He's like, pull the cab over. He knows he's the one that did the murders. Yeah. And he wants to get arrested. But an affluent white American can't get arrested anywhere.
Yeah, he goes to Piccadilly Circus, and he's like, or he's like trying to yell at the cop and call him names and say all this stuff, and they're like, they won't arrest him.
Just won't even consider it.
And he basically like loses Alex. He just like gets rid of her, and then he goes and he like goes to a phone booth and he calls collect, and he, he's basically saying his last bits to his family.
Yeah, he says his last goodbyes, tells his sister he loves her, and to tell mom and dad and Max. Which Max is the name of John Landis' son, who's also like a screenwriter and director. Huh. Max Landis. Yeah, so that's a little... I just caught that just now. But anyways, he's trying to kind of pay his last respects, and then he's going to kill himself, and he makes like the most half-hearted attempt.
Pulls out a Swiss Army knife and puts it side to side on his wrist, and it's pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, not making light of suicide. It's very serious, but it's down the stream, not across the road.
Yeah, this was just generally a piss poor attempt.
Yeah, he just doesn't have it in him to commit suicide. I do want to make my final piece of MetaTrifecta. There's punk rock graffiti all over those phone boxes. There's like a million different band names scrawled on them.
Okay, I mean, you're in London.
Yeah, at the time, 1981, or probably this is 1980 or 79.
80.
Yeah. There's a lot of subculture content in the movie.
I mean, it's window dressing.
It's
definitely not about that.
No, but it's just of the time.
Okay.
Anyways,
he goes into a porno theater.
Yeah,
and he sits down.
He comes out of the phone box, and Jack, in his final form, is across the street, and he beckons him into the porno theater. And he buys a ticket to see You Next Wednesday, I think is the name of their fake porno movie.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty hilarious movie.
I'm just like, oh, come on. This is, of course, this is what the Animal House director. Okay, this is going to be a thing where they just keep cutting back and forth and during the conversation.
This made a big impression on me at 9. I'll tell you
that. Of course
it
did.
I was very fixated on this. And as an adult, having been to a porno theater, they're way grosser than this one. This one seems very clean.
I can imagine. I've never been to one.
You're not missing anything you want to see.
And so basically, Jack is telling him he's kill himself, and he talks about all these different ways that he should kill himself. And he introduces him to all sorts of other victims of the werewolf who are there, and they're very pissed off and they're shitty to him.
Yeah.
Basically, Jack is kind of trying to defend him because he's David's buddy.
Yeah.
But the rest of the undead are just pissed.
Well, they just want to be freed from limbo. It seems pretty terrible to be kind of the Walking Dead. And I it was my favorite scene of the murder montage. And he's my favorite guy, the posh guy from the subway. And he's like, this isn't Mr. Goodman's idea. He's your good friend. Whereas I'm a victim of your carnivorous lunar activities. And that's my vote for episode title, Carnivorous Lunar Activities. Because that's delicious. That's a really good phrase.
That is a fun one. And so basically, David transforms into a werewolf again inside the theater. Mm-hmm. Lots of cuts back and forth between violence and porno.
Mm-hmm. My favorite thing of all in this scene is when David starts to wolf out and he's kind of gripping the seat and freaking out. The creepo that comes over to watch him, because, again, not to tell you too much about porno theaters, that's a big part of it, is people that go to watch other people do stuff.
Oh.
So that guy is like, oh, what's this guy in the back row doing? I'm going to go watch and jerk off. And he goes over there and gets himself eaten by a werewolf.
Okay, well, serves him right, I guess.
Hey, no kink shaming. If you like whatever you do in porno theaters is okay with us.
I think if you're peeping on other people's business and they happen to be a werewolf, you got what you got.
I think it's all understood at the porno theater.
And so, then he after he kills a bunch of people, he leaves the theater, and there's like a bunch of deaths that happen just from the car pileups and people like getting smashed between vehicles. And this is where they spent their budget, was on all of these like action sequences and set pieces.
They shut down Piccadilly Circus 2 nights in a row in the middle of the night from 1 to 4 or something like that while it was dark, and did these elaborate sequences. John Landis, he was a stuntman before he was a director, and he does a stunt in this scene. He has a little cameo.
Cool.
And it is so well choreographed. It reminded me of another John Landis movie, The Blues Brothers, which has a really extreme, like, long car chase with a lot of stunts in it too. And this is my second favorite scene in the movie. It's the carnage, the guy that flies out of the bus window then gets run over by a car.
The first favorite being the porno scene talking with Jack.
If you ask me at 9, yes, that's my first favorite scene. Now, as an adult,
it's the apartment transformation.
It's the apartment transformation,
okay.
Yes. But at 9, the porn theater was a big...
I think my first favorite is the apartment transformation. Second being stalking the guy through the London Underground.
Oh, that one's good too. There's a lot of good scenes.
It's pretty good.
So, anyways, we're getting down to the end. The people of Piccadilly Circus have no sense of self-preservation.
They run toward the danger.
They're like, everyone's like, there's excitement over there, and everyone wants to see it.
It's just like the guy in the porno theater. He ran toward the activity.
That's a commentary on society. We're all the guy in the porno theater watching the spectacle. Read Society of the Spectacle if you want to be depressed. That's...
Oh, man.
We're not going to go on a Marxist tangent, but... the people have no self-preservation. There's mass carnage. It's on the news. There's a mad dog in Piccadilly Circus. So Dr. Hirsch and Alex come.
Inspector Villiers gets decapitated in the scene.
and that's probably my fourth favorite scene.
It's
he bites his head clean off, and it bounces across. So this a little behind the scenes thing that I thought was kind of funny. He was explaining what he wanted to happen, and he kept saying the head bounces across the hood of the car, and none of the locals understood what that meant.
The hood.
Yeah, and it's because they call it the bonnet. And so finally it's like the head bounces across the bonnet of the car, and it's like, okay, got it.
Nice.
Then they understood. Yeah, Detective Villiers gets his head bit off. You know, I think this is actually good, but something that strikes me, something that's very different from America. It takes forever for anyone with a gun to show up.
Oh yeah, there would have been like half a dozen patriots there shooting at random passersby.
In England, the guns are all locked up somewhere, and you have to get authorization to go get them.
Yeah, they don't have any freedom.
Poor England.
And so basically they trap him in an alleyway, and he's surrounded by the police. Alex runs down the alley. Somehow she beats through the barricade, and she's calling out to David, telling him that she loves him. It seems like David recognizes her for a brief moment, and then he lunges at her.
And the cops shoot him.
And he reverts to his human form, lying dead and naked on the ground.
So just a few little things here. One, she, I'm forgetting the lady's name, but the actress playing Alex, she asked, am I saying this to David or am I saying it to a wolf? And they said, you're saying it to David. And so she played the scene without the puppet in front of her. And so she's in her mind, she's envisioning looking into the eyes of the man she loves, and she's pleading with him. Yeah. And then she said, when you see it, I'm acting to this puppet, and it looks ridiculous. That I'm like, I love you, David. And so I just thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that is interesting. And so that's the end of the movie.
Well, the other thing was he's laid out in that Pieta statue pose, and he's got his side pierced where the bullet holes went in. And I was like, have we really made the case for him as Werewolf Jesus? I don't know that we've earned this.
Yeah, I do not.
And so I pondered it a little bit. And here's my, if I'm going to make the case for him being Jesus, he died in the torment of all of the souls that had to walk the earth because of the curse of the werewolf. Because it's not just the people that he killed, it's all of them for the whole bloodline of the wolf. So he actually is the sacrificial lamb, as we set up at the beginning of the movie. He is Werewolf Jesus.
Oh, God. Okay, I'm not with you on that.
He's laying there like Jesus.
I think that the movie about the handsy American creepo and all of this stuff, that is way too high concept for what
he's a
this
Jesus
movie
for the 1980s.
That's way too high concept for this movie.
But I think it's intentional.
I mean, they tried to add in little allusions to everything and make this movie a lot more cerebral than it ended up.
John Landis, John Landis is Jewish. Jesus does not come, it's not his first language. So, points for trying. He got a Jesus thing in there. He just maybe doesn't fully get it. And that's fine. He didn't grow up with Jesus the way I did. But anyways, I've had this version of Blue Moon, the ball with the bang bang part. That's been in my head for weeks now. Like that just stayed with me forever.
The movie, it's funny because that song started. I immediately hit pause. And then I used my mouse and went over the progress bar to see if there was any more content or like a thing at the end. And there wasn't. And so I closed it because I did not want to listen to that song.
David doesn't like oldies. Our David. Movie David.
Probably doesn't either.
Oh, yeah. He was listening to jazz on his headphones. I like jazz, but that's the most... if you want to say that someone is a shithead... have them listen to jazz. It really tells you everything about them. They're like, this pretentious prick listens to jazz. He seduces nurses that are trying to take him home. He runs away from his friend when he's being killed by a wolf.
Yeah, David is really a shitty dude. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be friends with him.
Oh, that's why you're Jack and I'm David. Okay.
Right, so let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll come back and finish this off.
Welcome back, divers. So, Dave, what were your final thoughts on the film? What worked for you?
What worked for me was Rick Baker, Monster Maker.
Yeah, for sure.
He was he's a pioneer.
Yeah.
He's a true artist and an innovator. And this was an amazing example of his work. I also thought that there were some really excellent set scenes, set pieces, and really good camera work set for the action. I think it maybe John Landis missed his calling as an action movie director.
Yeah, his background as a stuntman really pays off here. Like, or anytime he does action, he really does have that skill set.
Yeah, I think that was what worked for me. So what worked for you?
Same. My number one thing, Rick Baker's Academy Award winning makeup and special effects. Just absolutely brilliant. I said it earlier, he's the best to ever do it. And I really believe that.
Yeah, he is.
Follow his Instagram. He's retired now. He doesn't really do movies anymore, but he still does elaborate makeups. Halloween at the Baker house is off the hook. He's serious about this stuff. Number two, the grounding in reality. The idea that these are fantastic, unreal things happening in an unreal world. I think that is achieved really well. It feels very much like the real world, and there's just this like thread of supernatural stuff going on. And then the Piccadilly circus sequence is so brilliantly choreographed. And I think this is basically the same thing that you were alluding to about Landis's affinity for action sequences.
Yeah.
It's just great. It's like the horror version of the car chase from the Blues Brothers. What about what didn't work for you? I think we've been kind of beating around this bush through the whole thing.
So everyone's used to me ranting about things I don't like, and what I wanted to do here is I wanted to give a nod to one of the greats, Roger Ebert.
Oh,
And I'm just gonna tell you what Roger Ebert said about this movie. An American Werewolf in London seems curiously unfinished, as if director John Landis spent all his energy on spectacular set pieces and then didn't want to bother with things like transitions, character development, or an ending. There you go. My actual feedback before I found this quote was things that didn't work: the acting, the slow plot, the overall lack of story or meaningful character development. There's no plot in this movie, and there's no character development. The characters are completely one-dimensional.
Yeah.
They don't change in the least. There's no moment where the character goes... There's no journey. They don't take a journey at all. They're just flat, one-dimensional caricatures, every single one of them. There's not a single character that has any depth. The plot is just it's A to B. There's no journey between. This is more linear than Fellowship of the Rings.
okay, yeah.
And I'm just like, holy fuck, how is this a classic?
Damn, okay.
So that's what didn't work for me.
You can ask me.
How about what didn't work for you? I just figured you'd agree.
Okay. No, well, first of all, I'm a little surprised that you're the first one to mention Roger Ebert, because I also go and check him out from time to time, because I think Roger Ebert's the best to ever do it when it comes to reviewing movies.
We are pale imitators.
Sometimes I'm jealous of Siskel and Ebert and their simplistic thumbs up, thumbs down system they invented. Yeah. And I was just like, oh man, that's so easy. Yes or no. And it's like I'm haggling over stars, fractional stars.
I'm glad we got rid of the fractional stars.
Yeah, me too. But anyways, what didn't work for me? I phrase it so much more delicately than you. There's some pacing issues, is what I said.
Slow/non-existent plot.
Yeah, I said there's some pacing issues. It lags a bit in the second act, but I thought on my rewatch, I felt like it watched better. Because this is one of these movies that you watch for your favorite scenes. You don't watch for the story. You kind of have it on and you're like, oh, here's that part where he kills the guy on the subway. And you watch that part and then you go back to,
looking at your phone.
Yeah, looking at your phone or doing your other stuff. And then you come back for your favorite scenes. So, yeah, I think the pacing of the movie is, it sucks, honestly. Like, it has a really bad pacing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that brings us to the rating. I think I know where you're going, but what do you rate this movie?
Well, before I give my rating, I wanna give the rating of the various places that we look.
Oh, I always look forward to this part.
Rotten Tomatoes gave this an 88%, and I truly believe that this is because Rotten Tomatoes didn't exist when it came out. So this is the only people rating this are people that already loved it. This is a rose-tinted review.
Yeah. Fangoria Magazine, Gorehound, all of the sort of famous monsters, all of the horror movie and monster websites. This is a classic, and they rate it generously.
And I say the same thing about IMDb's 7.5 out of 10. Now, here's the one that's truly telling.
Okay.
Metacritic.
Okay.
Metacritic gives it a 55%.
Because if I understand, Metacritic goes for basically all of the reviews.
All of them.
And so it goes back in time.
Yeah, it's an aggregator. And so I feel like that is the most accurately reflective review. And it is, I did mention a couple of awards in here. The 54th Academy Award, American Werewolf in London, got the first ever Academy Award for Best Makeup. And it was its only major award.
Yeah.
And then it was, interestingly enough, Empire Magazine named this the 107th greatest film of all time, which I thought was really interesting.
That's Empire has come up before. That's my go-to, like the barometer I test my own. Like, it's like, what does Empire say about this when I'm second guessing myself?
So I was really torn between 2 stars and 3 stars on this movie because there are moments of greatness and there's literal hour of dog shit. There's 30 minutes of worthwhile content in this movie and 15 minutes of establishing shots that were worth keeping. And then there was 45 minutes of, I don't know, nudie movies, commercials about a British pop star, a guy haggling with a kid about balloons, and all sorts of other just literal dross.
Okay.
It was banal to sit through this.
Wow. Okay.
And so I ended up giving it 3.
Oh, wow.
But this is a generous half-hearted 3, only because I consider this to be Rick Baker's best work. And I think he's the best in the business. And I think that there were action sequences, like Act 1 and Act 3 of this movie were legitimately good. And if you cut Act 2 and just watched 1 and then 3, you would be better for it.
Yeah, you basically come back in at the transformation and skip the whole
whole
3 months that David spends.
Yep.
Yeah.
You end when the werewolf gets shot to death. He wakes up in a hospital, and then you cut to him in an apartment changing into a werewolf. That's the movie. That would have been great. That would have been a 4-star movie. And instead it was a 2.5, and I'm rounding it up to a 3. So
I suspect most people that watch this movie watch it kind of like that, where they just tune out for that whole segment.
That whole 1 hour.
Yeah. I think so. Like, that's when you're making nachos, you're like, and you're just talking. It's a movie you have on with your other monster movie buddies or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what about you? What are your final thoughts and what's your rating?
Ultimately, there's so many iconic moments in this movie, but especially it's not my first viewing of the movie, but first viewing for the podcast, the same thing that you had a problem with, that pacing issue, really was tough for me too. But it did do better on the rewatch, and I think ultimately I'm falling on it being a 3+. I think.
Do you think it mattered, like in the zeitgeist?
Yeah, because I think after this, you kind of have a wave of werewolf movies that follow this. It brought werewolves back into the public consciousness. It is inspirational as far as like the special effects. This is a lot of people watched this movie and were like, I want to do that. So I think it does. And they invented an Academy Award category because of this movie, essentially.
And that's why it's a 3.
Yeah, so that's why I put the plus on it.
Okay.
I think that it ended up being a significant movie. It's kind of greater than the sum of its parts in that its cultural impact is greater than the film itself.
I'm not going to disagree with you entirely, but I am going to say this is not a MetaTrifecta as far as my. I'm not going to agree with you that this turned out to be a MetaTrifecta.
Okay, well, I made my case.
All right, so
I went into it not thinking it was, and then tried to make it into one.
You tried to invent something. That's okay. Mm-hmm. So what are you into right now?
Well, the footprint of Dune is very large, and it has been kind of a shadow that's not a shadow. A bright light.
A specter.
Yeah, Dune has been a thing for the entire time we've been doing this podcast. We kind of started with Dune, and Dune has really been this thing we hung our hats on. And so what I'm into right now is Timothée Chalamet.
Oh, God.
I love this kid.
Why do you say Timothée?
That's how you pronounce it.
I watched interviews with him.
En français?
Literally nobody said it like that.
I know. I only saw one where someone did it. Yeah, someone did it on purpose, and he was basically yeah, okay, you got it. You actually got it right, because there's this accent aigu over the first E at the end of his name. Anyways, Timothée Chalamet. I can't get enough of this kid now, and I watched 2 movies with Timothée Chalamet.
Oh, damn.
One of them I'm going to recommend to you, and the other one is just for me.
Okay.
So the first one is The King, 2019. David Michaud. I don't know. It's a French name, and it has a triangle over the O, so I don't know.
An umlaut? No,
It's not an umlaut.
That's dots. I don't even know what that's
yeah.
called.
I think it makes it an odd.
We'll call it a tent.
Michaud. A tent. It has a tent on the O. And if you're French... pardon-moi.
Nobody cares about
Le français est très mal. Anyways, so it's a gritty historical film about Henry V, and it starts out. Timothée Chalamet plays Hal. He's like this wayward prince, a little bit of kind of out carousing and stuff, and he's a reluctant king. When his father dies, he becomes king of England. Gotcha. And ends up going to war with France. And the Dauphin of France is played by Robert Pattinson, which I thought was significant because he's your pick for Fade Routha. Yeah. And I liked the chemistry between Chalamet and Pattinson. I like them as enemies. They work. They bounce off each other real good. And I was like, Dave's onto something. This I like. And Joel Edgerton, who's also a co-writer of the film, who's just exclusively in historical dramas. I don't know what his deal is. I like
historical dramas.
Yeah. So. He plays Falstaff, who's sort of like a past his prime knight and is Henry V's like close confidant and advisor. Mm-hmm. And it just was really good. And it's brutal. Like the combat in it, it's not sort of beautifully choreographed. It's down in the muck, like guys in full plate armor beating each other to death with their gauntleted fists, and it's tough. And I thought Dave would be into this. This is his
so
jam.
That's called The King.
It's called The King, and it's on Netflix, so you can watch it tonight, baby. You don't have to go hunting for it. You've already got it.
Easy, nice.
Then number 2 was the film I saw at the City Lights Cinema in Florence. The French Dispatch by Wes Anderson. And I just assume you don't like Wes Anderson movies, but I like them a lot.
I don't really know.
The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, Bottle Rocket.
I loved it, Life Aquatic.
Okay, well, you might like this then. You don't like quirky, and it's quirky to the max.
Okay.
And Chalamet is in this. So the premise of the movie is like an anthology movie, and it's sort of a love letter to the New Yorker magazine, and the stories in the movie are framed as articles or features from this magazine called the French Dispatch that is patterned on the New Yorker. Okay. And Chalamet, he stars opposite Academy Award-winning actress Frances McDormand in this. Their sequence is called Revisions to a Manifesto, and Chalamet plays a college student activist named Zeffirelli, and it's based on an actual youth rebellion that happened in France in 1968 that the New Yorker profiled. And it's just hilarious, and he's quirky and weird, and I'm kind of in love with this kid, so I'm into whatever he does now.
Interesting.
What about you? What are you into?
It's interesting that you did 2 recommendations, and I'm going to do 2 recommendations as well.
We don't plan this stuff, but we reflect each other.
This is when you're friends for 9 on 25 years,
something like point. That.
Yeah. It just happens that way. Okay, but I'm going to do 2 audiobooks.
Okay, cool.
And one is for everyone, and one is mostly for me, just like yours.
I don't know why it's like this.
So the first one, and I mentioned it before, and I think in the last episode, because I was midway through it. It's called Where the Deer and the Antelope Play, The Pastoral Observations of One Ignorant American Who Loves to Walk Outside by Nick Offerman.
I love Nick Offerman.
And I have listened to every one of his books on Audible, and he narrates them all himself.
Shoot, how many are there? Because I've only done the Paddle Your Own Canoe.
Oh, there's many more. You got some backlog. I hope you have some credits.
Okay.
And it's funny that you say that, because I put at the end of my notes here, divers that haven't listened to or read anything by Nick Offerman, start with Paddle Your Own Canoe. Yeah. It's kind of his memoir. It's sort of about his life and his upbringing and all that, and you get to know the guy. And so once you are his friend, you then can listen to the rest of them, because they all kind of are based on his life. And so this one, it's kind of a witty, meandering book about American society, like he does, and he talks mostly though about the outdoors, farming, and food sourcing. Now that does not sound immediately amazingly interesting, but it's all couched in these really great stories of things that he's done and people that he's talked to and places that he's been. I really love listening to these, mostly because Offerman narrates them all himself. He is extremely emotive. He's an amazing actor, and so he puts that all to use here on his books. I really enjoyed this one. This was, they call, a book like a page turner or whatnot, but this was an hour eater. Like, I literally didn't stop listening to it. Like, every moment that I wasn't actively engaged in work or conversation with my wife, I was listening to this.
Wow.
Like, the whole time. And so I literally did this whole thing in 3 days, maybe 4 days. It was that good.
I know the last time I got in your car, it started playing just automatically.
Yeah. So I love that book. And then the other one that I did, and this was also a page turner. I didn't stop listening to this, but you probably won't love it, but it was good.
Okay.
It's called Scott Stokely, Growing Up Disc Golf.
Okay.
So
it's more niche.
Yeah. This is written and narrated by Scott Stokely, who is a legend in the disc golf world. He's a perennial number 2 player, which is an interesting perspective to have a memoir from. He was always second to the greatest player of all time, Ken Climo, known as the Champ, won 12 world titles. He's generally considered the greatest there's ever been. Now,
the Rick Baker of disc golf.
Yeah, he's the Rick Baker of disc golf. So Stokely was different. He was not a finesse player like Climo. He was a power player. He held multiple world records for distance throwing that Climo never touched. And he also held more world's doubles championships than anyone else. And so he was, the interesting part about this book was that he talks about his youth. He just so happened to have grown up right next to the first disc golf course ever in Southern California.
Okay.
He lived there. And so he grew up playing disc golf every day, all day, constantly. This was his life. That's why it was called Growing Up Disc Golf. And so this is the story of the beginning of this sport. And it was really good. And because it's couched in the from the perspective of this player who's really amazingly good, but never the best. Mm-hmm. And he had a lot of problems in his life. He went through some severe addiction, multiple divorces, and lots of craziness, ups and downs. It was really well narrated. At first, it was a little stiff, like you could tell he was reading. Mm-hmm. He's not an actor. He's not Nick Offerman. Right. It's not slick like that. But by, I don't know, chapter 2 or chapter 3, he really kind of settled into it, and you could really like hear his voice and kind of feel his vibe. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm a Scott Stokely fan for life. Like, this guy is amazing. And so I really respect him. I follow him on all socials. And I hope someday to take one of his clinics that he travels around and does clinics all around the world. So, I recommend, if you're at all interested, this is a story for, of course, anyone who's at least even remotely interested in disc golf, or if you just want to hear an underdog story that's super genuine and real.
I always like oral histories and memoirs, especially when they're in the voice of the person. There's something about that.
It adds a lot. Yeah. So that's what I've been up to. I've been doing a lot of audiobooking, and I'm in a new one now too, and it's page turning me. So I guess I'm just on a hot streak.
You know, we've said since the very beginning, if Audible wants to ever sponsor us,
I love
we want
that
some of that Bezos money. Yeah. Oh. Before we get into the call to action, what do you think about Mark Zuckerberg trying to steal?
He steals our shit.
He's trying to get some of that metaverse shine. He went and he's trying to rebrand Facebook, which we hate, as Meta, and refocus the corporation on the metaverse. Hold on.
So I have two answers to this. One, Mark Zuckerberg, if you want to hire Nick and Dave as OG metaverse consultants, we are available. Secondly, this is our shit. Fuck right off.
We already staked this out. You know, I told someone, pointed it out to me, and I was like, I'm reliably ahead of the curve. I knew this metaverse thing was about to pop off. So, we've already been here. We planted our flag. This is our metaverse. No Zucks allowed.
Fuck Zuck. We're not into that. So,
all right, call to action.
So please subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher, as well as YouTube, Spotify, and Audible. Mm-hmm. Don't forget to leave a review. A 5-star review costs you nothing, but means everything to us.
New episodes of Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse drop the 1st and 15th of every month. We are on Facebook, even though, like we said, it sucks. Fuck Zuck. We're on Instagram. We're still owned by Zuck, but more fun. And we're on Tumblr, not just for porn anymore. Tumblr still has content, and we're there.
Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.